webinar. Does your induction start with an apology? And this is me, Liz Fields-Pattinson, and I'm an occupational psychologist with JOMC. And the reason I wanted to ask this question was because it's actually what I've heard a lot when I've sat through various site inductions before I've been allowed to go around company sites. Almost a sort of apologetic presentation about the people feeling that they're wasting our time a little bit, you know, and wanting to rush through it very quickly because it's just something they have to do. And I think that actually it's a very important process that we need to go through, and it's something that it's often a missed opportunity in many companies. So the thing I wanted to say this morning is we're not going to actually cover technical content in the induction session and whether it should have information about fire first, or any what actual content there should be in it, because that can be very much dependent on the site you're on, the company you're in, and the hazards people are going to see as they go round. So we would assume that that's something that you've thought long and hard about before, and sort of has decided what are the important things that need to be in there. So the purpose of this morning really is to, like I say, discuss how important that session is in how you are setting the tone of health and safety in your organisation to your audience, and how easy it is to waste that opportunity and actually set a tone that you really don't want people to take away. We're also going to see what your audience are there for in their eyes, because it's probably not the same agenda as you. And also make sure that you're sending out the right message and how to do that. How to improve the presenter's delivery, because that's the key to the session actually being effective. And very often it's really given more thought about who's available as opposed to how good they are at doing this. And then finally we're going to look at how you can get your material noticed. So the message you want to send, how are you going to get that across to people and actually get that into their understanding, because it's something so very important. Okay, so moving on then, importance of induction. The audience that you have, this is very often their first experience of that company site, or maybe they've been in for recruitment initially, but to actually sort of really look around and get a feel for the place. This is their first time. So you may have people who are completely new starters, new job for them, coming in for their first day. As I say, maybe their recruitment might not have even been on that site, so this may well be a very first visit and experience of it. You might have employees who are actually with the company but are coming in from other sites, and for whatever reason are going to be working on that site for the day, or coming in for a meeting or training or whatever. So they're actually part of the business, but as they're having an induction, then they either haven't been on that site for a long time, or it's their first visit there. And then obviously you've got potential clients and customers who might be wanting to look around and see how you work and how you operate. And they're the usual suspects in an induction audience. You obviously may, within that also, you may have agency staff coming in who, and contractors who may be quite a quick turnaround in terms of there's a lot of movement. For example, in the construction industry, there's virtually a site induction every morning with a new set of agency workers. So, very variable, as I guess, as to how often these things are happening and how often you have new starters, especially in the current climate. But they're the general people who are in the audience. Okay, so the key thing I'm trying to get across in this webinar is you can't make another first impression. As we all know, the saying is, you only make that first impression once. And it's a very, very sort of strong emotion that it triggers in people, not necessarily that they're aware of, but things are triggered at a subconscious level when you first meet somebody that are to do with how we get on with each other and how we understand each other. So that first impression and how we want to influence people and how we want to control that is very much part of how we influence each other socially and as a group. And it's something that we may be aware of to a certain extent that we're doing it, but we're maybe not aware of how strong a message it can send. Okay, so the key to this is that, it's as important as the content, because once that first impression is made, it's the difference between whether people are actually going to take that content in and engage with it and actually think about it in the way that you want them to, or whether they're going to have a tone set that makes them feel quite defensive about it, or already that it's something that is too strict and too overbearing, and they don't want to engage with it. So that first impression that sets is very much sets how they're going to listen to the next part when you're actually starting to give them the information. So without it being set in the right way and influence people in the right way, the messages you send them won't stay with them for long. It can be very superficial, and they'll walk out nodding that they've understood things, but probably not really taking much on board. And I certainly found myself when you're in a situation where somebody seems very rushed and very hurried and very much not really wanting to be there to do the induction, that you don't want to ask questions because you don't want to cause it to last any longer. You don't want to seem to interrupt them. So it's very hard then to engage with the process. Even if you actually do have a valid question to ask, you probably wouldn't bother. Okay, so we're going to have one more slide, then we're going to have a section where you can, time for some questions, so that we can have a bit more of a discussion about this. So, as I say, impression management is something we all do to a certain extent. It's the way that we want to try and make someone have a certain perception of it. So every time we are in a situation where we're meeting somebody, and we're however short a time frame that might be, there is this possibly this desire to want to leave them with a particular understanding about us, or a particular feeling about us, a perception about us. And also, organisations should want that to happen as well in this induction. They should want people to get that instant understanding of the sort of the cultural way that health and safety is considered within the company, and that's going to happen as soon as they start to meet that first. They go through the gates of reception and they go in and see the company for the first time. They'll start to develop that picture in their head and that perception in their mind. Okay. When you're in the induction, it's not just you who's got an impression, who's doing the impression management. The other side, the audience are doing it as well. We will all know that your first day at work is a big day, and you may well have spent quite a lot of time deciding what to wear, but also maybe even thinking, what should I not wear? Because it's as much about what I don't want people to know about me than as to what sort of image do I want them to see of me. So you may well tone down your appearance and how much jewellery you wear, for example, until you find out from your fellow colleagues, what's the sort of acceptable dress code. So on your first day, you might go a bit conservative and hope that you're not going to stand out. Or, you maybe want to go the other way, and some people just have that urge to be very different from everyone else. So, but it's all about what image do I want the rest of the people I'm going to meet today to take away from me. Now, obviously, the induction is the first part of the day, but they've got a whole day ahead of them, which is actually probably more important then. That's what they're there for. So this induction session is just something they've got to go through, and this is why, you know, you need to get in there and get control of it, if you like, in terms of setting it. Okay. So as I say, we expect people to want to set out to impress on their first day. But what impression are we going to leave with people? That's the thing I want you to really get this morning. What impression does your induction session leave with people? Do you actually set out when you think about it? Are you actually trying to set out and give a perception of health and safety in your business, or are you just hoping that comes across with the content you go through and how much detail the content, your induction program, you know, how in detail that is? Is that where you feel that people will see how serious you are about health and safety, how conscientious the company is about people's safety? So what I'm asking is, how are you doing that? How are you making sure that's getting across? How successful are you being at it? So, thoughts. What I want you to do is, you know, just share. We've not got a huge group, so it shouldn't be too difficult. People have got queries or any questions about what I've just sort of started out with. But also, you know, what is your induction like? How do you see the program operating? Do you feel it's effective? Over to you.
Liz, good morning. My name's Phil Souter, and thank you for what you've gone through. I hope I'm not spoiling your flow at the moment. I think what you've gone through is what I would see as the basic fundamentals any employer would have to do to discharge not only their legal responsibilities, but also their social responsibilities to people, which could be anybody from employees to visitors, depending upon what site they're coming to and the hazards that that site may well have. Now, yeah. I think the thing really with all this lot is how far do you want to go down and how much information do you want to give to somebody, because we often get with some, you can go through an induction where you sit there all day and your eyes get glazed over, people fall asleep and you don't really achieve all the message. I think from my perception and certainly from doing these presentations, you can make it very succinct, very sharp, very snappy, that says, this is what you do, this is what you shouldn't do. Talk to your host or your manager if you want further information, but almost leave it at that, because people go in there just saying, tell me what I've got to do on the site, tell me what I can't do, and who do I go and seek advice from if I need it. And that's the way that I would look for on any type of induction. Don't make it too detailed, don't make it too long, otherwise people get bored. So that's my comments on this.
Yes, and I have myself sat through some that cover so many topics, there's just no way. And that can be a real problem, because obviously you want to make sure people are armed with all the information, but it's very limited as to how much you can take on when you're so new to the situation. Yeah, very good. Yes, definitely. We're going to go on to actually what is the material, how's the material put across, and certainly, as you say, short and snappy, and some as much visual content as you can. It's very, very good for helping people to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Any more comments?
Yeah, just one other comment as well. I think, and you'll be able to tell me more than I can tell you, that from the psychological side, people's interest is more or less fixed in the first 30 seconds. So if you don't get the message over what you want in 30 seconds, the rest of it could go past them. Absolutely.
Certainly that first feeling about how authentic this is, I think that's what we're going to try and come on to, is how believable is all this to people. They get that very instantly and don't even realise. They don't have to think about that. It's just something that comes across. If they feel that it's a genuine message and it's done for the right reasons, that comes across very much as part of that sort of initial interaction with the presenter and who's doing it. Yeah, and obviously, generally speaking, I reckon the first and last things you talk about are what people take away, but it's very difficult to retain what's in the middle. So,
yes.
so yeah, refreshing and summarising is very good, very, very key. Was you somebody else there who wants to?
Yes,
I'll go first. My name's Lorne Clark. I've got a couple of observations, I suppose, from my experience. In my sort of previous role, we were running a lot of construction sites, and I think there's an element of induction fatigue, let's say, from a lot of transient workers that are moving from site to site, and I suppose a lot of what you've already covered this morning is in one sense so important, because you've only got that one opportunity, and the fact that these guys are probably listening to a number of different inductions with a lot of different information on a regular basis. You've got that one opportunity very quickly to try and capture their attention and get your message across, similar to what the previous gentleman was saying. So that's sort of one observation, and sort of I'm interested in perhaps a bit more detail about how we might address that. The other issue is, in my current company, we have an induction program which includes an e-learning package, which obviously can provide a consistent approach to the new starters, but also there's then a local induction which is delivered by line managers, and again it's about trying to get, that we may have 100 line managers within the business delivering a local induction, and they're all going to deliver it slightly differently. So it's about providing guidance to those individuals and having the culture within the business, so that again you get a consistent delivery of your health and safety culture and your health and safety message to all your employees, and not 100 different ones.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense.
Quite a few companies I think go for the e-learning idea, because they can brand it however they want, and they can have it, a nice corporate image at the beginning, and chat from the MD or whoever as the opening to it, and as you say, it doesn't matter whether it's Monday morning or Friday, and how busy you are. It could be delivered in exactly the same tone and consistent manner, and it's not sort of dependent on who's around at the time to go through it with someone. So yeah, quite a few companies I think have gone for that route, especially where they've got lots of inductions and things that lots of different sites and stuff, to have some consistency with it. Yeah, it is important. I think that the thing is, as we're going to come on to, the real key to this working is the people who are going to do your induction have got to have, it's not just about do they understand the material, but do they actually believe in it. And as we're going to come on to, that is key to that first impression, whether people actually think this is a tick box exercise, or if there's genuine care and compassion behind wanting people to be safe. And I think that's culturally setting that tone that this isn't just a compliance issue is really key. Otherwise, people think that's all health and safety is in the business. If that's their first impression of it, and it's a bit overbearing, or it seems a bit, simply working your way down a clipboard, a chart on a clipboard, then that's very often how they see that health and safety will be in, in the business for every other area. So it's very key that whoever's doing it is either consistent in how they deliver, but also is behind it. So I'm going to come on to how to get your presenters on board in a minute. But yeah, the other thing you were talking about there, I think is very interesting with the construction site. Yeah, I've been on lots of construction sites, inductions, where people are falling asleep, they're texting, they're drinking their tea, they're not listening to a word that's being said, the actual assessment at the end is almost farcical sometimes, in terms of the presenter actually almost shouting out the answer as he gives the A, B, C options, because there's quite a few people there whose English isn't very good and they haven't really understood half of it anyway. Very variable in quality. Very much we have to get through this as quick as we can to get you all out there on the site. And you know, and it sort of, again, it shows, if you're not careful, it sets the tone that is how we consider safety on this site. You know, we just go comply. We do what we have to do. We need to get you through this, and everyone plays along. You know, we'll sit here for 20 minutes in silence while you say your bit, and then we'll all rush out having not heard a word of it. And I think that's very difficult to overcome. And you really need, like you say, presenters who can, you know, literally challenge that and you know, ask questions and make people join in and make people take some notice of what's being said and interact with the material a bit, if you're actually going to get past that go mentality. And what's worrying is sometimes in the room you've got people who haven't been on a site, but they don't want to interrupt and ask questions because they don't want to be seen to stand out from the crowd. So where they probably do need some more information and to clarify things, they don't. And then they're off then, you know, well, they should know everything now. Yeah, so it's not a joking matter, you know. It's supposed to be there as a buffer to help those vulnerable new starters who can just blunder into an unsafe situation or not really see the risks that they're putting themselves under. And you know, very often that doesn't come across in a way that people feel, you know, that it's either put across in a way that makes you feel like you're being shouted at before you even start, or being told off for something you don't even know why, and barked orders at, or, you know, it's put across in a way that's quite matter of fact and people don't really see it as a serious message. Okay, right, well, we'll move on and hopefully we'll have some more time at the end for some more questions. So we're going to now, as I say, look at how we can successfully start to make those first impressions count. So as I say, get your material right, get your content succinct and, as you say, and the details that is necessary, but nothing else. Don't try and throw in the kitchen sink because it's your one shot to get it in their heads, because they won't take it in. If there's a lot there that people have, then have you know, this is the priority for the first morning, and then a follow-up, as you say, either the line manager or another follow-up with safety, if necessary, the safety team at another point where people have got some time to take in the first round of information and assimilate that, and then sort of, you know, get a backup for that. But I have again found places where they know that it's very hard to get people, you know, to get follow-up organised, follow-up and sort of the next level. So they tend to want to try and do it all in one bash, and that's very difficult. And as I said, you know, material-wise, visual stuff, video, you know, and sort of pictures of the site are really, really important. Generic pictures of hazards and things people just switch off to. But, you know, photographs of the site and the actual area where you want people to go to when there's a fire, or, you know, actual sites that they're going to see as they walk around is really important. It helps them to start to get a feel for where they are and where they fit into it. And if, you know, a map or a plan, if it's a big site and there's lots of it, you know, lots of space where people have to stick to walkways and things like that, leave it with them. Give it something that they can take away, not just expect them to just have a quick think about it while you're talking and then that'll be it. You know, give them stuff that they can go back to and take away with them and review in their own time. Okay. Yeah, keep it up to date. ask people who've been through the induction, how, you know, with a few weeks afterwards, how effective was it? Were the things that were missed from it that you've now found out from colleagues that would have been really useful on your induction, even if it was something more to do with where the canteen is and how you pay for your drinks or things like that. But it, you know, it can be just as much part of the induction, something like that, as you're walking around. But just get some feedback and constantly feed that into your induction so it stays up to date. I mean, I've been through where the photos on there are, you know, are of areas of the site that aren't in existence anymore. Or, you know, there's operations they don't do and things, and it's sort of, oh, you probably won't see this now because you stopped doing this last year. And it just makes people feel like, you know, it's not really very relevant anyway. So keep it up to date and keep getting some feedback and using that to make it work as effectively as possible for you. Key part. Think hard about your presenters and who you're choosing here. It's really important as to how much people take away in terms of their understanding of the material and how good they are at putting that across. But really vital is that message they get with that first relationship they build, you know, when they say hello. Okay. Think about that first impression you want to set. This is, as I say, how people start to perceive health and safety in this organisation in its widest context. This is their first experience of that. So right from them going through to reception and signing in, which again sometimes can be hit and miss. And you know, again, there's nothing sets a good tone when you arrive and someone asks you to sign in and get your badge or whatever the process is. You know, that really, again, shows that there's a very tangible side to safety here. It's not something we just leave to chance. And then obviously that sort of meet and greet side of it with the presenter is really key. Because people will come along with their own perception of health and safety people. And whether it's a health and safety person doing the induction or a supervisor, you know, there's a perception already probably in their mind that health and safety people are, you know, going to be wielding a clipboard and are very much job's worth, pedantic, got to stick to the details, stick to the point, probably going to be very boring. So they may well already have brought with them some history and some prior experience that you don't want to instantly feed into, because that will just start, that'll be there, you know, like, this is what I think is going to happen, I'm not going to bother to really pay attention. I'm just, you know, I'll allow my understanding of the situation as I see it, which is not correct, but it is how they see it. I'm going to allow that to just guide me through this process and get to the other end as fast as I can, and I don't want to interact with it. So you know, you may well have some work to do in terms of undoing some past experience there. So as we said, consistency, absolutely. Make sure your messages are very consistent so that you know you're going to cover everything. You know that you know it's not hit and miss whether things get left out. You're covering all those important points. You're giving some priority to things that you really want people to get to grips with. You know that you'll summarise the end, the really important points, and you know that you'll give people time and expect people to join in and ask questions as well. Very often, the "have you got any questions" question comes at the very end when everyone's getting their coat on. So, you know, no one wants to ask a question then because they don't want to delay anyone else from leaving. So, as I said, consistency, really, really key. And think about what message you're sending with your content, but also with this this presentation that you're going to give, so and how people are taking away from that this feeling of health and safety. I've seen many inductions almost devalue health and safety in the organisation by how flippant they are, for example, with this topic. Okay, so moving on to your presenter, which may be you, I appreciate, maybe a health and safety team, but can be line managers, can be sometimes. I've had security guards do site role, sort of site visits where you've actually walked around with them, and so I mean it can be a number of people. But the thing is, they are very, very important. It's a vital job, and this is where the apologies come in, because this is where I've heard it so many times with people, to say, apologising for, you know, oh look, I'm sorry, we've got a lot of things to get through, and I know you're all busy, you all want to get on with your day, but you know, I really just need to go through this. You know, that sort of opening is just, forget it. You know, health and safety here, it's nothing. It's just a tick box. It's just a formality. We've just got to go through the motions. That's not what you want. So make sure you get people who are up for the job, and you need to spend some time getting them ready for this. Again, it's very much sometimes a case of who's available and who can read through the sheet, which, you know, again, makes it very hit and miss. So if they don't believe it, if they're not one of the people in your team who is genuinely behind the safety message, don't make them do an induction, because they can't hide that. They can deliver the material quite well. They'll go through it, they'll go through the motions, they'll point everything out, but they don't believe it. And that comes across. And it's very much those, you know, subconscious messages we get from people about whether they're really telling the truth or not. And it isn't something you can hide. So you do need to think about who's doing this, and are they on board with the safety message. Okay. So again, if they aren't, and they come across, they may deliver it very well, they may go through things very well, but their actual feeling they give to people, and that first impression they give is this is just an exercise that we have to do. And I'm not, you know, some of it might be useful to you, but I'm not really behind some of it. You know, some of the rules here are a bit OTT. You know, they don't actually say that, but that's how it'll come across. Okay. Yes, give them the latest technical help with it as far as you can, with the presentation, the materials that's up to date, that's like they're visually nice to look at. And photos just help so much to get people on side and understand where you are and what you're trying to get across, and make sure that they know exactly what's in there and they're not floundering about over some of the areas, because again, nothing looks worse than someone trying to talk to you about where to go when there's a fire, when they're trying to think for themselves where the assembly point is, you know. And again, I've had that. Oh, I think it's by the main entrance. Yeah, I think it is, because well, you probably saw it when you came in. You know, you have that type of conversation about it. But I'll just check. You know, you don't want any of that. People have got to be very confident in what they're presenting, so they know that material. Okay. So give them the skills to be able to engage with people. This is really crucial if you're going to get this point across. So they must be able to very quickly put people at ease, build that relationship. It's a very short time span from saying hello to getting that classroom, in the classroom or around the site, or however your induction starts. And during those first few minutes and those first few exchanges of greeting and how you're doing, how was your journey and all that, really, really, really important time to put people at ease, to get, like I say, to set that tone. I went to a really, really good one, which showed me so much the difference. With this guy, came down, you know, very personable, very chatty. Hi, how you all doing? Great, you're all here. what sort of a drive did you have, he said to me. Did you have a good, safe drive here? You parked safely. It wasn't done in a way that made you feel, oh, God, for God's sake, we're only driving down the road. It wasn't OCT in any way. It was very genuine. And it really just set the tone for the whole induction. We're just here to care about you all, to think about your safety, and we want everybody to start the day safely. And it was very, very well done. And that was a really interactive session. And it really, everybody was just so, almost happy to be doing this induction, and there was no one sat there just looking at their watch wanting to go. The other thing they have to be able to do is deal with people who are very cynical about it, who are seeing it as a waste of their time. So you may have people who are a bit nervous about starting their new job, but you will also get people who still see it that they're a bit above induction. I'm not going to say managers, but I shouldn't tar them all with the same brush. But you do sometimes get people who see, sort of see this as something that other people need to know, and it's not really that they should need to bother themselves with it, but they'll just have to go through the motions, and they can be quite awkward because they won't really join in, and they don't want to get involved in any of the sort of QA sessions that you might want them to sort of take part in. So you need to be able to, your presenters need to sort of deal with it and not turn this into an antagonistic confrontation, which I've seen a lot of. I'll show you how important my stuff is, and I'll go through it as slow as I can now, and make you stay here a bit longer. And it becomes a power struggle. And these things are really important because you're now getting, once you've got past the first impression, you've got people into their group for the induction, however big that might be. You've now got a group effect starting. People will want to sort of set their stall in terms of where they see themselves in that group. And so people who think that they should have a sort of level of power over someone else or authority, for example, will start to exert that sometimes, and they can start to ask awkward questions, for example, or, just how long, what time does this finish, and things like that, which are very, a way of cutting you down and interrupting your flow. So dealing with them is really, and knowing how to tackle those situations and not get phased is really important as well. If your presenter is going to not sort of do 2 or 3 inductions and then never want to do another one as well, because it can be quite a stressful experience for them if it's not going well. Okay, so as we said, they learn to present the material, but also then to get people to interact with it. And that is again, how you ask questions and how you get people to think about it is really key. And so, as we said, how many people only have questions, for example, at the end of the session because they need to test people's understanding? There's a few questions at the end because they have to show they've assessed that people have sort of reached a certain level. And again, they're not asked as the group. Maybe people have to tick a box and things like that. But they're not asked in a way that gets people to think. So, again, knowing who's in the room, knowing where they're going to be working, getting them to think about, now we've gone through this, where would you go if, again, when the fire bell goes? If you had a chance to look for a fire exit while we were walking around, these types of conversational questions, getting people to sort of think about things at a slightly deeper level are really important. And also making people feel comfortable enough to say, well, actually, no, I don't think I would know where to go. Could you just go through that again? It's really key. Because very often people are all sat there thinking the same thing, but they just won't ask. So I mean, you haven't got to have all singing, all dancing, juggling routines going on, but you do need to have people who can, get some humour into it, get some conversation, get some discussion, as far as possible within the time frame that you have. Okay, so that's your presenter. And as we've sort of covered a bit about the presentation itself, if at all possible, get people out and around the site. It really helps them to get some orientation and some real understanding of where things are and what you're on about and what actually these hazards are physically like. So even if they're in an office, they're never going to really have to go down on the site, for example. They may well have to walk across an area to get from the car park to the office, which requires them to stick to a walkway and things like that. Actually, if you can walk and explain why it's very important they stick to that walkway, and they can see those forklifts coming in and out, or those lorries that are coming in and out, you know, really get a feel for the hazards that they're going to experience. And if you can't physically do that for whatever reason, then if you can spend some money and actually get a video, which will give you the sort of virtual tour and some photos that you can maybe do some 360. And there's a lot of Photoshop options out there now, and you can, you know, for very little investment, you can get quite a good virtual tour around some of the areas. But so people can, again, they actually see for themselves the actual picture of what they're going to see when they go out there, and it's not just generic, you know, pictures which are of standard signs and things that don't mean anything. So if they can see it in situ, in context, it can really have a much deeper effect on their understanding. So the next thing, this, as I say, it helps proactively deal with the most unsafe situations. But when you're on the tour, the key thing is that you don't find yourself undoing your fantastic message you've just started sending out from your, you know, your first introduction by people wandering around the site, seeing things that are going on that are just undermining your safety message. And I know that can be very difficult if you're still in the throes of sorting safety out on your site, and there's still people who don't want to wear the PPE or don't stick to the walkways themselves. But the presenter needs to acknowledge that. If you see someone walking directly across an area where they should have stuck to a walkway, he needs to say, you know, that person shouldn't be doing that. He should be on the walkway, and I'll have a chat with him later, type of thing, and not just ignore it as if it's not there. So again, key, challenge those things that are giving over the wrong message as you go round. Okay, this sometimes includes the presenter, as I say, who may think, don't want to come across as this two-square clipboard, you know, wielding, form-ticking health and safety person. So I'm going to try and be quite hip and trendy and a bit funny. And actually, sometimes they can sort of, you know, say, find themselves undermining the safety message they're trying to get across. So just again, think about, you want a serious tone, you want a absolutely believable, truthful person, you know, who genuinely believes in it and who is going to acknowledge the practicalities of some of the things that maybe it's more difficult for people to do. You know, accept that if they walk around the footpath, it might seem a longer way to go than cutting straight across the middle. Acknowledge that. But say to people, we've done that because it keeps you out of harm's way. You know, don't just apologise for it. Again, this is sometimes when you get to this stage and people go, but it's a long way round to fix the footway. Yeah, oh yes, well sorry, but that's what we've got to do. And you don't want any statements like that floating about. You know, there's a serious reason why this has been done, and that's what we've got to get across. Okay, this is the thing that really I get when I see. You go to sites, oh, we've had a visit from, you know, the local MP, and he had some photos taken in the site, and he's standing there with no PPE on, or his hard hat but nothing else. Nothing undermines safety more in organisations than people who don't do what they have to do because they are seen to be above it. No one is above it. If there is a PPE requirement on that site, you know, high vis, hard boots, whatever it is, then everyone has to wear it, whoever they are. And that is a really key. So whoever you're showing around, even if it's a customer who's saying, oh, we're only going to be here half an hour, I don't want to put all this on, you know, or whoever, you don't budge on that. Because as soon as you do, you've undermined it all. Again, we've gone back to safety is just a formality here. We don't really take it that seriously. And I've actually talked to companies where they've insisted that clients and customers put all the PPE on when they've walked around, and it's actually been seen later on when it's gone back to the head office and discussions about who's going to get the contract. You know, it's been seen taken very well. You know, they're very serious about health and safety. There was no way we weren't going to wear the PPE. You know, so you can really undermine your position by letting people wriggle out of that one. However nice their hair looks, they have to put the hat on if everyone else has to wear it. You know, if that's the rule that you wear a hard hat, then they put it on. So, okay. So, yeah, question effectively, as we've said, get people to join in. Don't just test them at the end. Make sure that they're understanding, and test that understanding by getting them to talk to you about what you've told them, getting them to feed back to you what they've understood about you, what you've just been talking about. Don't put people on the spot and interrogate them. If they don't know, then acknowledge that maybe you'll go over that again for them. But don't let people wriggle out of it either, because you'll get the quiet one who sits there hoping no one asks them anything. And also the worst time is when you get somebody really loud who knows everything about it, and they almost monopolise the situation, and you haven't got a chance to really see whether the others are equally as on board with it. So again, this is all part of your presenter skill that you need to give time in that presentation for that that ability to question and check knowledge and revisit stuff if you need to. Okie dokie. So final area now. What is that key safe message that you want people to take away? These are some of the companies that we've been working with that have come up with their sort of way of phrasing safety that's very catchy, that you can see very visibly, that is important. It's good to leave people. You see a lot of people talk, oh, zero harm, zero accidents. That means very little, to be honest, to people, because they can't see how you'd ever get there. They don't see it as realistic. So come on, get something. If you haven't already got a value that you state, or a mission statement, or something that's quite short and snappy, get something that gets across your genuine desire to give them the information that's going to keep them alive and safe on the site. Okay. So recapping, just to summarise, we've got these little boxes, which obviously you can download this presentation, so it gives you some key points there to get it together. You've got to set that first impression. Make sure that your presenter is an effective choice and that they are capable of doing the job of engaging people in the material, and then set yourself up to show your site off and your culture of safety off to its best advantage and get people on board. And hopefully then your new starters will come in and accept your safety rules and risk assessments and regulations and guidelines without question. They won't be thinking, oh, this is just all ridiculous, I'm not going to do it. They will be on board that safety is a paramount priority in your company, and that's what they take away from their induction. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Any observations?
Yes, I've got a comment. It's Phil Suter again. I seem to be hogging some of this with another gentleman on the call. A couple of things. First of all, I think there's what I call a factor of dependency with size of audience that you're delivering to. because a number of those points I think are really good points. However, if you've got an audience of 20 or 30, if you're doing a major induction because of whatever reason, you can't exactly engage with them in the same level that you're suggesting on there. I'm not saying what you're putting over is wrong. I'm just saying we need to consider it, and that's something we've come out with on that. I think the other point as well is that we're looking at the e-learning system, as one of the other gentlemen on this call mentioned. Ours is from a global perspective. We're putting that in. Now, again, if you're going into that style of e-learning, a lot of the things you're coming out with here will be very difficult to take account of and deliver in the way that you're suggesting. And again, I think, to use my phrase, horses for courses, depending upon size of audience, the method of delivery will also obviously change the message that you're coming over with. However, again, with all this lot, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to give people information to work safely and to avoid putting themselves and others at risk. So, positive, I found it very interesting. I'd like to say thank you very much from my side. And I made a few notes on this, so that's the end of my statement rather than questions.
Thank you. Yes, good points there. I think with e-learning, I have seen some that are very slick, very corporate, and look fantastic, but they actually set a false impression because people walk out onto a site that doesn't match up to that impression at all. And it's almost a sort of, there's a dissonance between what they've just experienced in this e-learning package that looks very slick and fantastic video footage of things. When they get out there, you know, the workplace isn't the same. So you've got to match on both levels. You know, you can set a tone, but you can't keep it if it's not actually real. But they are good if you've got a lot of people to get through, you know, in a large amount of time, you know, in a short time, and you want that consistent message. But yes, you do need some follow-up locally with line manager level, really, to do that sort of getting people past that you know, that using what they've just listened to and gone through in the e-learning package and actually applying it to their local area where they're working. So yeah, it's really important not to consider that just because they've done the e-learning package, that that's it, they're done and dusted. They still need that sort of local orientation to happen, and some reiteration of the main key safety areas that they need to think about with wherever they are. Okay, any other comments or questions from anyone?
Yes, yes, I'd like to make a comment. It's Glenn Manners. I'm a health and safety consultant, but until 2-3 years ago, I was actually, excuse me, managing director of a construction company. We weren't that big. We had maximum 115 employees. But I took the induction process to be the one single opportunity we got to start to raise and impose a culture in the organisation and create a culture in the organisation. And I initially set up the induction programs, but I monitored the results of those and actually went round and spoke to people about the perceptions of the induction. And as a result of that, I brought in a completely different induction program. The first thing that I'd like to say is there's a huge difference between being inducted into a company and being inducted into a state. And those two things to me are very distinct. What we did was we set up a program. We realized that people can't really take information for more than about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So we set up a program, and there's not just health and safety, there's environmental, employment and operational induction as well. We set up a program whereby they would be inducted for an hour a day over a period, and that would start off by the MD in my case, because it was me, but it could be a regional director or a local manager, actually doing the first session and actually putting across, this is me speaking, and this is real, this is what we want, and not make it a formal going through slides presentation, but actually speaking pre-thought out, but using real examples of what's happened and why we take it so seriously. And then following through over a period of a week to a fortnight, probably maximum an hour a day, and it might not be every day because we can't do that all the time, but also allocating with to each inductee a buddy, somebody who is offered as a result of your induction process to be that buddy, because people will not pick things up in the first, even in the first month, and there's so much to take in. So we used to do that, And then right at the end of the induction program, which might be a fortnight, might be a month, depending, because the other thing is to make the program fit the role. Some people don't need masses of information, others need a lot. Is at the end, that same director, that same managing director, that same area manager would come back and close the session out again without any slides or anything else, and actually question every inductee as to what their experience was like, what the perception is, and whether they actually believe it's real. And by being interactive at that stage, you can actually find out whether it was effective. And there were occasions when we also put people through a refresher program at the end of it because they clearly hadn't got the message. I think it's important that we can't unload masses of information on people in one go. Even simple things like learning how to fill a requisition form in or a plant transfer note, those sort of things which are more operational than health and safety, they're not going to pick up in 5 minutes, but they're crucial, so they need to be early on. So I think it's impact initially, perception initially, and then slowly follow through. Where site inductions are concerned, we used to give an internal card to say you've been inducted to our sites, on a full induction to a site induction, and then when you go onto each site, you just hit them with the impact of the specifics of that site, not the whole range of stuff that they've done, the CSCS and their initial induction. That's how we used to control it, and I think it works well, but I think the most important thing is the people who present it need to be able to do it.
Absolutely. Yes, and like you say, great to start it with a senior manager if you can, because you say it shows that you're not, safety isn't just for the safety team, this is everyone in the organisation taking it seriously, definitely. Yes. Well, as you've got on the screen there, we have got a half-day workshop which we run, which just helps those people who've got the job of taking on induction to just be that bit more effective in how they present, how they put themselves over, how they ask questions, how they use their time, how they think about the material and get it into a way that they comfortably can present it and question and use the questioning style to engage people in it. So it's quite a good way of making sure you've got some consistency and that you are getting that rapport building going right from the off. So if you'd like any more information about that, just drop me an email or Sinead if you've got Sinead's email address, and we'll send you some details about it. Okay, we're also going to have some more webinars. We haven't got yet, it's got dates actually set in diaries, but we'll send you out some details, topics and dates, and if you'd like to join us, just click and register again. So is any more comments or feedback on the session? Hello? Hi, anyone still there? I think I've still got seven on the list. Yeah, right, well if there's no more comments, I'll just thank you all for ringing in and joining us, and I hope you have a good day, and this has got you off to a good start, got you thinking about your induction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.